The story begins at heaven's door where souls are rolling dice to decide what happens to them in the next rebirth. We see a soul who is congratulated for rolling a 6 in his dice roll. After a few souls turn, our main lead comes, and he rolls dice. As the dice rolls and lands on one soul around him, he begins to whisper and talk, pitying him at his low roll. His next life becomes decided as a bread shutter who has no luck, skill, or looks. As he despairs about his situation, he is pushed out of heaven's door. During the evening we see our main lead Dongtae being bullied by 3 bullies for not bringing what they order him to bring. As he is contemplating if his life would be any better if he had focused more, he sees his crush Yunju on the way to the school gate. And hides behind the wall when it looks like their eyes are going to meet. As he thinks about Yunju, and how someday she might start going out with someone, he feels jealous. As he thinks, he sees someone pass by him and turns around. Only to see a guy notices his mobile having a dice hung with it. The next day, as he is being ordered to buy something by the bullies off-screen and leave, his crush asks him where he is going as the class is about to begin. As he fumbles in front of her and does not know what really to say, he offers to buy her something if she needs it while looking creepy as fuck. But the girl replies without showing much of a reaction to come back quickly. Dongtae runs too embarrassed. When he comes back from his errand, the class seems to be loud with the excitement of the new transfer student. The transfer student introduces himself as Taebin. The teacher assigns him a seat which is right next to the Dante. As he looks at the transfer students, their eyes meet, and the transfer student asks if he wanted something. As he was going to reply to the bully's calls for him, a few days pass. Dongtae sees the transfer student get more popular. And even gets close to his crush and feels jealous and runs away. While he runs away, he falls and ruins all the food he had brought them and gets beaten up again. When he returns to class, he sees the transfer student looking at his phone and asks him what he was doing. The transfer student replies that he was playing a game, and when he turns to face Dongtae to find him brushed up. As he tries to show concern for him, Dongtae lashes out on him. He apologizes and tells him it's not his fault. And begins to vent out how better he is compared to himself and how much better Dongtae's life would be had if he has been like him. Hearing that, Taebin asked if he could change everything. But Dongtae angry tells him to stop bullshitting, while Taebin replies calmly that it is possible and invites him to a game. He goes on telling what if he could be taller, better looking, and strong like in video games. Dongtae asks if it was possible and Taebin replies if it was, would he believe him? Yunju comes into the class apologizing for being late due to practice, only to be surprised to see Dongtae there as well. He finally realizes that Taebin was in the class because he was waiting on Yunju and runs out of class angry and jealous. As he runs away, Taebin runs behind and tells him to wait, only to be ignored. Yunju asks if she came in at a bad time. Taebin replies that's fine. As they walk into the class again, Taebin's phone vibrates, showing a quest failed message which frustrates him a bit. Though when Yunju turns around to ask if he got a message, he hides his frustration and just replies to her smiling, saying it was a game notification, and he changes the quest from befriending Dongtae to making school Madonna, being Yunju his girlfriend. At home, Dongtae thinks if Taebin and Yunju are close enough to go home together, they must be in a relationship. He began to rethink what Taebin said about how he can change as much as he wants. And looks at the mirror to think how ugly he looks. And how he is a complete loser. He hears a knock on the door and finds his mother drunk. He puts her in bed and sleeps on the floor, thinking again how it's impossible for him to change. The next day he ordered me to borrow from another class, and while he was returning, he met Yunju. He tried to run away again just to be stopped by her. And asked why he was hurt and why he ran away yesterday. If she was the reason he ran away. Dongtae nervously replies that it was nothing and he just tripped, and everything was fine. Yunju smiles in relief. Dongtae tries to ask if Yunju and Taebin were dating. A loud shout comes saying there's been a fight and sees students running to the scene. Yunju suddenly runs after them and Dongtae follows behind her. As the students are running, they talk about how the biggest fighter in the class was fighting with the transfer student Taebin on the rooftop and how they had been targeting him for a while. As he goes to the stairs to the rooftop to see another student who seemed to be bullied to stay and stop others from coming up. Dongtae sees Yunju worried with the sound of a fight going on top, so he offers to go instead of her as he was asked to bring gym clothes anyway and he used to be hit. When he reaches the rooftop, he sees that the bullies were beaten up by Tae-bin. Dongtae says how weird this is and what he was thinking just for him to say that it was all a game. As Tae-bin walks down the stair he looks at his phone which showed that quest success screen. As Dongtae asks him to wait to continue the conversation he sees other students surrounding him and praising him. As Tae-bin and Yunju walk away Dongtae sees Yunju holding Tae-bin's hand. He thinks that someone as kind and warm as her shouldn't be with Tae-bin and he would reveal his true nature to him. After school Dongtae follows as Tae-bin and Yunju walk home together. As they return Tae-bin pulls Yunju to the side and a truck comes in and holds her shoulder. As Tae-bin and Yunju keep looking into each other's eyes a sudden message comes to Tae-bin's phone. After reading the message he tells Yunju that his sister had lost her key and was locked outside so he could take her to the bus stop. Suspicious if he is returning home, he follows him. After following him for some time he sees him going to the roof of a building and starts at his phone. Suddenly Dongtae gets a message and sees something light up behind him. As he goes to pick it up the door behind him suddenly opens up and he sees Tae-bin. Freaked out, he ran and locked himself in his house. He gets a message from someone saying he isn't Tae-bin and he should calm down and turn on the lights. Dongtae gets freaked out and starts asking who it was and how did he know about him. He says the reason he knew about him was because he picked up something back on the building. He remembers just after he picked up the shining thing which turned out to be a dice. Tae-bin walks in and asks him to give dice to him. Dongtae tries to run off with the dice. As he got close to the entrance, he saw Tae-bin there who punches him knocking him down. He asked for the dice again. When Dongtae tries to say no he starts threatening him. Though he was scared he started to run away again only to be grabbed by Tae-bin. As the wrestler over the dice Dongtae accidentally drops it rolling it by mistake. Just as the dice rolls on 5 and changes color, he gets a message saying he gained a dice and became a dicer. Tae-bin, who was adamant about getting it lost interest after it changed color which confused Dongtae even more. As he asks questions the messenger says that he will start explaining him. The messenger says that he was holding a dice and that dice could change everything. Messenger tells him he needs to complete the quest that comes to him as a text message. When he completed the quest, a blue dice would appear, and he had to roll it to own it. When rolled the dice would turn red and get activated. Once activated only the owner of dice could use it. The owner could use dice by synchronizing with them to increase their skill. And after synchronizing the dice turns white. When he asked about Tae-bin the GM sent him a picture. When Dongtae opens it, he sees a guy who seems ugly, and GM tells him that it was Tae-bin before becoming a dicer surprising Dongtae. As he thinks that if Yunjin knew about it she would be with him. He contemplates and decides to use the dice. The following week was golden, so Dongtae began gathering more and more dice and synchronizing to make himself look better stronger, and smarter. Next Monday when school started everyone becomes surprised by Dongtae's new look. Everyone in class surprised by the change in Dongtae. Even the bullies are in a daze until one of the bullies snaps back and begins asking Dongtae what was happening. He thinks of fighting back but gets discouraged as soon as he sees the scowl. He begins to regret using all the dice on appearance only. He takes the bully's order and begins running. When he returns, the bullies start to scold him for not bringing exactly what he orders but notices other students in class, taking notice of that letting him go and making another student take the buying food duty. As soon as Dongtae gets off the bread shutter other students begin to ask him questions about his change. While he talks to the classmate, he notices Yunju and Tae-bin walking into the class together and gets frustrated but thinks that he will soon catch up to him. Yunju starts congratulating Dongtae when Tae-bin suddenly hugs her from behind and announces they're dating publicly. Surprised by the sudden declaration of Tae-bin Dongtae goes through the huge feeling of a jumble of negative feelings. While he is dazed, he notices other students teasing him about his relationship with Yunju and how far they might have gone. When Dongtae and Tae-bin eyes meet though he sees him smirking and running out and asking the GM if he could somehow sabotage Tae-bin using his dice. Though GM just tells him to call himself X and begins ignoring him. As he walks away, he remembers meeting her during high school and her calling out to him. Looking at her through the window while she did her practice. He sees Tae-bin and Yoonju together and Tae-bin kissing her. When he saw it, he started to run again just to crash into someone. He doesn't stop running while apologizing. After some time, he is roof in daze when a girl approaches him. As she starts talking to him, he gets a message from X saying he has a quest for him. He is surprised and confused by the new quest and its rewards as he didn't even know the girl's name. As he thinks about the quest and their reward, he contemplates if he can actually complete it. As choose to do the easiest of the mission and compliment her, which the girl seems happy to hear and goes back to class. As Dongtae picks up the reward X message, calling him chicken for choosing the easiest mission and asks when he will do other quests. As he complains that the quests are hard, X replies the reward depends on the difficulty of the quest. Then he suddenly realizes and asks if Tae-bin also did such a quest only to be made fun of for realizing so slowly. Dongtae confronts Tae-bin on the rooftop after school about him going out with Yoonju just because quest. Tae-bin denied it, saying she was kind and pretty and saw no reason to turn her down. As Dongtae tries to berate him for playing with her feelings, Tae-bin just replies, "It's none of his concern," only enraging Dongtae. As he tries to call him a liar just to remember himself doing so to complete the quest. Not being able to confront this, he begins running to run into Yoonju. When Yoonju asks him about Tae-bin, he starts to run again. He promises himself to finish more quests and get more dice and beat Tae-bin. Dongtae comes into the class early, steals the girls' 12 clothes, and begins washing them, completing the quest, confused about what kind of quest it even was. Though he keeps doing as he wanted more dice than Tae-bin. Circling culprits in detective novels, tearing honor students' textbooks, etc. Not sure what kind of quest or why he was given such a quest, he keeps doing it. In a week he gets enough dice to make himself better, gathering everyone's attention. Though he still fails to get Tae-bin and Yoonju's attention, he keeps thinking about how far they might have a good week of dating. The girl behind talks, Dongtae has changed and if he already has a girlfriend. When Dongtae asks how many dice Tae-bin has, X can't leak that info as a GM and tell him to stop bothering him as he is reading Bible. Dongtae just spoils him so that Jesus gets executed and X just curses him for spoiling. As he is walking out, he sees the same bullies bullying someone else and remembers the time he was bullied. He beats up the bullies while easily dodging as he puts his stat on speed. After beating the bullies, he gives the glasses kid his glass. As he is helping the bullied student, the student instead screams at him, saying this happened because he changes so suddenly. He tells him that because he changes, the bread shutter duty came to him, and as long as it's not them, no one in class cares, including Dongtae. Seeing this, he remembers Tae-bin confronting him in the classroom and deciding to give him the dice for the chance to change. At night on the rooftop, he asks if the glasses kid Byung-chul rolled and became dice, only to get a vague reply. Getting irritated, Dongtae as if he is sulking, but X replies that he is just busy managing all the dicers. He tells him that none of the dicer and their identity were secret as they didn't want it to be found out. Then X asks Dongtae why he gave Byung-chul the dice. Dongtae said he just wanted to as he was once a bread shuttle. X asks if Byung-chul tells other about it just for Dongtae to laugh at it, saying who would tell other they became dicer. Dongtae as if X is still concerned about him giving away the dice. X replies he isn't, and the thing were getting interesting. The next day Dongtae wait thing how Byung-chul would use the stat from dice just to see him come in looking the same. When the bullies start bullying him though, he snaps and hits the bully, making him fly to the wall, knocked out. As students run scared trying to call some help, Byung-chul turns to Dongtae and thanks him. When Dongtae give dice hoping he would change, like he did, Byung-chul seemed to put all stat on strength and fought back, which surprised Dongtae. Byung-chul thanked Dongtae and said he was his friend. Other students move out of the way while bully's friend checks on the bully who was hit and tries to berate Byung-chul for hitting a classmate and a friend. With that anger, Byung-chul turned to the bully and walks close while screaming at him for all the things they have done to him. But before he could reach them, Dongtae jumps in between and tries to stop him. Though Dongtae tries to calm him down and sees the reason, all Byung-chul feels is rage and thinks Dongtae is trying to protect the bullies. Byung-chul steps forward to fight with Dongtae, which is stopped by Tae-bin, who said that the teacher is coming. Seeing the teacher coming in, Byung-chul runs away while Dongtae tries to stop him from leaving. Taebin stops Dongtae and asks if he gave Byung-chul the dice. Dongtae tries to cover for Byung-chul saying he was just nervous. Taebin became angry and asked if he was doing charity work by giving him the dice. Only for Dongtae to scream back. That's how Taebin himself became a dicer and started searching for Byung-chul again. He finds Byung-chul in a room holding the hand that he used to hit the bully. Dongtae asked if he spent the night getting the dice to grow this strong, and Byung-chul showed him 6 dice saying that was all he could get. He begins telling, he didn't believe him at first, but when he found out it was real, he begins to see if the stat had any limit or if you could go beyond, and he chooses to check it using a strength stat and a grip tester. He found out that if one focuses on a single point the change is greater compared to using it on the entire body. That is why even with that small number of dice he gets such power. When Dongtae asks if this causes imbalance and causes harm to the body, Byung-chul admits it but again asks what if one were to max out a certain stat, would that give him powers that are not human like ESP or telekinesis? Surprised Dongtae as if he has psychic power, but Byung-chul replies he hasn't been able to get it yet. When he asked X about it, it replied the skill hadn't been unlocked yet, showing it might be possible. Byung-chul thinks with the help of dice they can use psychic power. When Byung-chul asks about what they both got as tells him his quest, he figures out that each dicer gets a different type of quest depending on the dicer. And how everything was controlled by X. While returning home he contemplates if he had helped Byung-chul. Teachers didn't believe the students told them but still suspended Byung-chul for 3 days. At Byung-chul home, we hear his parent fight with each other after finding out that Byung-chul was suspended. Byung-chul looks at his computer and thinks dice would be the only way someone could be special. While Dongtae thinks about psychic power, he gets a message from X. He asks if raising a skill like Byung-chul was possible. Back in Byung-chul home, Taebin was visiting him and asking him to go someplace else. We see a fat guy on the rooftop thinking about all the bullying he's been through and wanting to jump. Though he also knows that his jumping would really matter as the bullies wouldn't care. When he turns around, he sees a silhouette get startled, and slips. Before he falls, he is caught by the silhouette who tells him this was the day he is reborn and gives him the dice. We see Taebin and Byung-chul in the middle of an empty street. When Byung-chul asks why he called him here, Taebin tells him that he wanted to talk, and he didn't like standing out. Taebin says he wanted to check something while Byung-chul agrees and tries to punch him. After dodging the punching Byung-chul away, Taebin asks why Byung-chul attacked him. Byung-chul says he knew Taebin was a dicer and wanted to check if Taebin had unlocked any supernatural powers. Byung-chul believed that higher-level dicer must have unlocked supernatural skill, as Taebin has been the longest dicer among them, he must have unlocked it. Taebin only replies that it is impossible, and even if there was, he would have no use for it. Byung-chul says he will make him use it and starts the fight again. At home, Dongtae remembers his talk with Byung-chul and starts searching for dice online. He finds different articles including one that show how dice rolled determined the life of a soul. He remembers a dream he once had of him rolling dice and getting low numbers. As he thinks about the article, the fights between Byung-chul and Taebin are still going on. Though Byung-chul keeps dodging and kicking him aside with ease. Taebin asks Byung-chul to give up. He warns that if he keeps doing it, he won't be able to use it and turns to walk away. Byung-chul asks if he has met X, which Taebin says no. The next day, as Dongtae was thinking about Byung-chul, girls from class ask him to join them in a cafe. As they talk about the test and eat at cafe, Dongtae sees Byung-chul and goes out to meet him. When Dongtae called Byung-chul, he began to ask how he used the dice. Byung-chul says, he learned something new about X, and just as he was going to tell him about it, another classmate starts calling Dongtae, so Dongtae says goodbye and goes back to school. After Dongtae leaves, Byung-chul start getting new quests like sneaking to school and burning it down. After school, when students we are returning home, we see Byung-chul hiding in a bush but a gasoline. Dongtae in bed, thinking about Byung-chul, asks X about Byung-chul when he sees that the screen is glitchy and hears Byung-chul call from outside the door. When he opens the door, he sees Byung-chul with a destroyed left arm and a ghastly appearance. He then suddenly woke up from the nightmare and see that he has a message from Byung-chul saying he has a lot of things to say to him tomorrow. Byung-chul sneaks into the school and opens up gasoline. Suddenly he hears an alarm and spills the gasoline, and he searches for a lighter and drops it after lighting it. As he is demanding the dice, X stalls him. He screams when he hears guards coming, then X rewards him with the message that he has stalled him long enough. He ran out of class when the guard suddenly started flashing a light in his face. Byung-chul began to run away from the guards, and starts climbing stairs when he gets surrounded by stairs below and classroom side. As the guard loses the Byung-chul, the guard goes to the bathroom and looks outside, missing Byung-chul, who is on the pipe right beside the window. The guard closes the window and goes back. Dong-tae gets a quest to sneak into school, shake off guard and open the bathroom window, confusing him. The next morning, he remembered the quest that he declined. As he is slowly going to school, he meets with Yunju and walks to school with her while having a light chat. When they reach school though, they see students running and hear someone sneaking in and jumping out of the window during the night. Having a bad feeling, Dong-tae runs toward the site and sees Byung-chul blood and died on the ground. When Yunju comes to the site as well, he hurriedly covers her eyes from the harsh sight in front of her. Even with Yunju asked why he is doing such a thing, all he could do was apologize and keep her eyes covered. As she hears the student talking, he saw the window to the bathroom closed right above Byung-chul's body. Still confused, he keeps asking himself what happened. Last night after her guard returned after locking the window, Byung-chul had tried to climb back but stuck hanging on the window. After hanging for some time, the hand starts aching after all the damage it took after repetitive use and slips, making Byung-chul fall to his demise. Dong-tae suggests Yunju go to class and he walks off to confront X. While he screams to X why such a thing happened, all X replies was, "To think Byung-chul would die like this, I feel so bad, but we can't do anything about it because it's what he did to himself." As Dong-tae tries to think what X was trying to say, he sees freshmen with dice in their hand and he goes to take it back. He sees others have picked it up as well. While confronting students about it, one of them drops it and gets text. Dong-tae asks X to stop it, but X replies why should he? He just reminds like of when he gave dice to Byung-chul to help him. Doesn't it mean the more dice are the better? When tries to argue, X replies with a line from the Bible, Matthew 10 verses 34 to 36, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace, I have not come to bring peace, but to hand you a knife." Dong-tae suddenly wakes up from a nightmare. Though confused, he finds it a relief that it was a dream. When he turns, he sees that Byung-chul's funeral is today, remembers what happened, and becomes angry. Even at the funeral, all he could think about was that day. He confronted X and asked if he was trying to save Byung-chul by giving him those missions just to get frivolous answers. He thinks if he could have stopped Dice from getting out, and what Yunju would think if she knew the source of all this was Taebin. As Dong-tae is walking out of the funeral, he bumps into a guy who just smirks when their eyes meet. Seeing that, he suddenly ran back to catch him but lost sight of him. As time goes on, school turns back to normal. As Dong-tae is walking around in school, he sees Taebin and Yunju. As Yunju walks out, she sees Dong-tae and asks if he has time. On the ground, players ask a passerby to return the ball, but the passer just kicked to the goalpost pole, bending it and bursting the ball. Yunju asked Dong-tae if he had time as the teacher had asked her to take Byung-chul's stuff to his home. Dong-tae happily agreed and carried Byung-chul's stuff as they walked to Byung-chul's home. After reaching the house, they meet Byung-chul's mom, who sits with them in the living room. As Byung-chul's mother showed happiness that Byung-chul had a such good friend, and she thought why he even did that and thinks if it had something to do with her. Hearing that, Dong-tae suddenly shouts that Byung-chul wasn't like that, he wouldn't kill himself. As he is talking, his mind spirals into the thought of what would have happened if he had done the mission and maybe he would have been able to save him. The mother finds huge comfort in hearing that from Dong-tae and asks Dong-tae to live for Byung-chul's sake as well. As mother runs out to bring the glossary, she forgot. Dong-tae gets embarrassed and goes to use the bathroom just to stumble into Byung-chul's room. On the school grounds, the mysterious character who kicked the ball is confronted by the player and asked to apologize, to which he just attacks him. But to his surprise, the player also seemed to be a dicer and was able to take the hit. As Dong-tae walked into Byung-chul's room, he sees that the mother had left it untouched. He accidentally bumps into the pile of notes and sees that one of the notes is about dice. He begins to read research on dice, dicer, and who X might be. Dong-tae sees that Byung-chul believes there are ranks between dicer, and to gain a higher rank, skill needed to be unlocked. He read a part where Byung-chul wrote if dice were to somehow spread, a clear division between dicer and non-dicer would appear. On the ground, the two dicers continue to fight when suddenly someone gets hit and breaks his arm. Surprised by that, they both walk back when they get the mission and the player begins to think. Back, Dongtae and Yunju starts walking home. As they walk, Dongtae bring out the subject of supernatural power and her thought on them. Yunju gets confused at first but then says she believes they won't need them, and that people should live the way they were born. As they keep talking, Dongtae offers to take her home, but she refuses and goes alone. As he looks at Yunju disappearing in the path, he begins to think about what Yunju said about living the way one was born and thought it would be hard for someone like him. Dongtae contemplated what to message Yunju, and after he does get giddy when he gets a reply. Then X messaged him, and he started to talk about the notes he found in Byungchul's room and asked him about them. He asks if he killed Byungchul because he hacked the system, to which X replied hackers are to be deleted. As he asked if what was written in the note was true, X replied to climb the rank to find out. He thinks about what was written in a hurry and what Byung was trying to tell him. The next day, classroom is filled with talk of the fight that happened in the playground and how many people got hurt trying to stop them. Dongtae listens to the conversation and heard how one guy found something shiny and found out it was dice when he picked it up. Suddenly a guy ran into class telling a girl in the next class who suddenly got prettier, how that might have happened. With the dice spread in the school became a place with more and more quests. Multiple quests began to pop up with multiple people participating. While some are harmless, some are not so much. Students began to trade dice for materials and money. One student seems to want to buy some dice and goes into a classroom with a guy holding a handful of red dice.